Hi, my name's Phoebe. I carried my son for 9 months, raised him through storms and struggle, only to be told by his bride that the wedding already happened, and your kind doesn't belong here. They didn't just exclude me from the wedding. They erased me from my own family, sold my home behind my back, and called it just business. But here's the part they never planned for. Saturday morning, I woke up early, heart full of quiet hope. The sun filtered through the blinds, casting that warm, golden glow on the kitchen floor, just the way my late husband used to like it. I made myself a soft-boiled egg, 2 slices of toast, and that strong, dark roast from the bottom cabinet, the one I only brew for special days. Today was supposed to be special. Today was supposed to be my son's wedding. I'd set out my lavender blouse the night before, laid it gently across the bed like it was holy. My small gift sat on the kitchen table, wrapped in kente cloth, folded just right, with a card tucked underneath. The card took me 2 weeks to write. Every word was carefully chosen. I wanted to bless their union with something deeper than just, congratulations. I wanted to offer wisdom, something from our family's heart, but the silence was deafening. I checked my phone. No messages, no directions, no address. I scrolled through old texts thinking maybe I missed something, maybe I was the one forgetting. But there was nothing, just a text from 3 days ago. We'll be in touch soon, Mama. I sat in that chair so long the coffee went cold. The bride, her name's Cassidy, never did warm up to me. Polite, always, but distant. Like being in the same room was a duty, not a choice. I brushed it off, told myself she was just adjusting. Different background, different upbringing. I tried, Lord knows I tried. Bought her books on Black history, cooked her gumbo from scratch, even taught her how to wrap a headscarf once. But it never landed. She'd smile that tight smile and change the subject. I needed air. I walked across the street to check on Miss Laverne. She's always up early, watering her porch plants. "Ain't you at the wedding, girl?" she asked, eyes twinkling behind thick glasses. "Saw the pictures this morning on Facebook. Your son looked sharp." My feet stopped cold. I blinked. "What pictures?" "Oh, honey," she said, showing me her phone. "Look here. Ain't that your Marcus?" There he was, tuxedo crisp, arm around Cassidy, who wore white like it was her birthright, her family beaming in the background, a venue I didn't recognize, and not a single soul from our side in the frame. I don't remember crossing the street again. I only remember stumbling into my house and fumbling with my laptop like it was a bomb. Facebook loaded slow as molasses. The page refreshed, and there they were. Dozens of photos. Her side of the family, her friends, her pastor, her flowers, her dog. But no me. I texted him. Nothing. Called. Voicemail. I found the venue's name in one of the photo tags. Grabbed my keys, drove through tears, red lights, and a growing knot in my throat. My hands were shaking so bad I almost rear-ended someone. By the time I got there, it was quiet, cars pulling out, staff loading up tables, music still faint in the air. And there, at the far end of the lot, Cassidy, her bridesmaids, still in dresses, laughing with champagne in hand. I got out slowly, unsure of my own steps. Cassidy saw me. Her smile dropped. She didn't flinch, didn't blink, just said, like she was ordering lunch, "The wedding was yesterday. Your kind doesn't belong here." I couldn't speak, couldn't move, just stood there, feeling the ground fall out beneath me. My son, my own flesh and blood, was nowhere in sight. I went home, shoes off at the door. My body moved like it remembered grief. I sat on the edge of my bed, stared at the gift still on the table, the card, the cloth. I reached for the photo of Marcus as a baby, chubby cheeks, one sock missing. I remembered carrying that child through snow to daycare, working doubles at the post office, skipping meals to buy him school supplies. And now I was just not enough. I walked to the bookshelf, pulled down a photo of my husband. My fingers brushed over his face. "We did right by him," I whispered. "Didn't we?" The phone rang. Voicemail. It was my sister. Phoebe, where the hell were you? Folks asking why you weren't at the wedding? Made us look bad. I couldn't respond, couldn't explain something I didn't understand myself. I opened the drawer beside the bed. Letters. Dozens of them. I wrote to Marcus over the years, never sent them. Just poured out things I was too afraid to say. They were full of love, full of doubt, full of trying. Cassidy's words rang again. Your kind doesn't belong. That wasn't new. I'd heard it before. At school, at church, at the bus stop. But never from someone marrying into my family, never with my son standing silent beside her. I stared at my hands, wrinkled, strong, hands that built a life from scratch. And then I looked up at the mantel, where his graduation photo still stood. When did I become invisible to you? I asked no one. The text came through at 9:47 p.m. Just one sentence. Don't make this a thing, Mom. I sat on the edge of my bed the next morning, still wearing the same house dress from yesterday. The same air hung in the room, thick with something you couldn't see but couldn't escape. My coffee had gone untouched. The eggs boiled too long. I moved slow, like grief had settled into my bones. It felt like morning, even though no one had died. The quiet in the house wasn't peaceful. It was hollow. Every tick of the clock reminded me that I hadn't heard from Malik. Not a word. No apology. No explanation. That single message from last night still glared back at me. Don't make this a thing, Mom. That was all my son had to say after what happened. After what she said. I kept hearing Javon's voice like it was on loop in my head. Your kind doesn't belong here. What exactly did she mean? I knew what she meant, but my mind still tried to twist it into something less hateful, something easier to swallow. Maybe she meant my attitude, or the way I dress. Maybe it wasn't about race, but deep down, I knew that wasn't true. I called Malik again, straight to voicemail. His inbox wasn't even full, just no effort to answer. I opened Messenger, tried to leave a message, nothing. I checked her page, blocked, tried his. I was blocked there too. There's something uniquely cruel about being deleted by your own child. It's like watching your reflection vanish from a mirror you once polished every day. I stared at my phone. Nothing moved. No text, no call, no notification. Just me and that long, blank screen. It was like I never existed in his life, not even enough to warrant an explanation. I dialed Diana, my older sister in Chicago. She picked up on the second ring. Hey girl, she said. What's going on? I tried to keep my voice steady. Did you know about the wedding? Well, I saw something online, but I figured you were there. Why? They didn't invite me, Di. I found out from a neighbor. Showed up after it was already done. She went quiet. Then, too quickly, she said, You sure? Maybe it was a last-minute thing. You know how these kids are. Maybe it was just immediate family. Immediate family. That stung. I am immediate family, I said softly. Phoebe, don't take it so hard. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe it wasn't personal. I didn't argue. What was the point? I called Myla Ray next, my niece. She answered, and her voice cracked the second I said hello. Auntie, I didn't know you weren't there. I swear. You saw the photos? I did. And I thought maybe you were in the back or something. I just assumed. She sent me a few screenshots. One showed Javon's father raising a glass, Malik by his side smiling. Another read, Only the real ones present. I stared at that caption for a long time. Only the real ones. I guess I wasn't one of them. I sat in silence, couldn't even cry, just numb. I thought about all the times I showed up for Malik, first day of school, job interviews, court dates when he was a teenager, nights he was sick, days he didn't have gas money. I was always there, always. But now, I wasn't even mentioned. Later that day, I walked through my house like I was looking for someone who'd left without saying goodbye. The couch in the living room, I helped them pick that out. The table they ate off of, I had it delivered. The fridge in their kitchen, bought secondhand and cleaned spotless by me before I gave it to them. I opened my closet. The pale pink dress I bought for the wedding still hung in its bag. I had planned to wear it with white pearls, simple heels. Now it looked like a costume for a role I was never cast in. I reached into my nightstand and pulled out a sealed envelope. A $1,000 check, signed and dated. My wedding gift. Still waiting. Still hopeful. Not anymore. I placed it all, the check, the dress, the card, into a cardboard box. I taped it shut, not out of anger, but to keep from breaking something inside myself. I raised a man who forgot his mama, I whispered. Not bitter, just truth. Sunday evening, I forced myself to go to church. Folks were friendly, warm, asked how the wedding was. I smiled, said I wasn't feeling well. Deacon Renzo looked at me a little too long. He knew I was lying, but didn't push. When I got home, I logged onto Facebook. Javon's mother had posted a status. God bless the union. Thank you to our beautiful guests. Scrolling down, I saw a comment. Was that Malik's mother in the back? Javon replied, No, that was a close family friend. I sat back in my chair, hands in my lap. My lips trembled, not from rage, but from the shame of being erased so easily, so publicly. Like I was some stranger from the neighborhood, and not the woman who gave birth to him. And that night, for the first time in a long while, I didn't cry. Not because the pain wasn't real, but because even my tears felt unwelcome in this new version of my life. I woke to the cleaning tape still hanging on the windowsill, the edges curling in the gray morning light. My body felt heavy, as if the house itself knew I was wearing loss. I shuffled to the kitchen and set the coffee pot, every sound hollow. I'd slept only in bursts. I wouldn't say I felt rested. Rather, I felt alert, with a quiet pressure behind my bones, waiting. I checked voicemail. Nothing new. Then I found one. Unheard. From her. Javon's number. My heart twisted. I pressed play. Good morning, the voice said, flat. I just thought it was best for everyone. That's what Malik wanted too. 5 words that broke me open. There was no sorrow in her tone, no hesitation, no regret, just cold certainty. That message confirmed what I feared. Exclusion was planned, not accidental. I replayed it 5 times, each repetition a hammer in the chest. I recorded it using my old recorder. Something told me that voice needed to be saved, preserved. Evidence. I turned off the phone and stared out the window. The street glowed wet from last night's rain. My own pulse felt like thunder. Clarity replaced confusion. Betrayal etched itself in every corner of my mind. I walked to the library mid-morning. I had a list. Revoking power of attorney, changing banking beneficiaries, removing emergency contacts. I printed forms that felt like declarations of war. The paper smelled like cold ink and decision. At the bank, Mrs. Harmon greeted me at the teller's window. She leaned close and said, I'm proud of you, Ms. B. Her voice cracked in that quiet way she always uses for people she respects. I nodded. It's about time I started being proud of myself, I whispered back. The rest of the day I boxed up what remained of Malik's belongings, framed photos, awards, old sneakers. Every item stirred memory. I taped the boxes shut, each seal a statement. I won't keep living amidst pieces of a life that rejected me. Back in the living room, I called the donation center. A man answered politely, scheduled a pickup. I watched the gray clouds gather outside. The storm was coming. I let the rain start before I stepped outside. I let it hit my face, cold and relentless. I whispered, let it all wash out. Later, Deacon Renzo knocked. He came bearing sweet potato pie, a gesture of church kindness. I invited him in. He sat across from me at my kitchen table. He didn't ask about the wedding. Instead, he said, people confuse silence for peace. That never was your burden. We sat in that kitchen. I poured tea. He opened his Bible. He read from Proverbs. Like a muddied spring or a polluted well are the righteous who give way to the wicked. He looked at me. Don't give way, not in spirit, not in voice. He left me with a quote. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Maya Angelou. I taped that quote on my fridge next to that faded photo of Marcus as a toddler. I stared at it for long minutes. I stood before the mirror in my bedroom that night. I didn't just see me, I saw a lineage. My mother's face behind mine, her mother behind hers. Generations of women swallowing insults, holding on to pride. I wondered, did silence protect them, or did it curse us? My hands trembled. Hands that held babies, braided hair, folded laundry, washed dishes, wiped tears. They were never sacred to them. To me, they are sacred. I took down the wedding dress I'd wanted to wear. I cut it into strips. Some became rags. Others tied my hair back. I didn't cry. I didn't mourn. I said quietly, "This isn't grief. This is rebirth." With a sting. That night, pillows soaked in sweat, I knew something had shifted inside me. I would no longer just respond. I would reclaim. I was about to pull down the last framed photos from the living room wall when I heard a knock. Just one tap, sharp, deliberate. My heart skipped. I dropped the picture and wiped my hands on my dress, as though I could scrub the tension off my skin. The door cracked open. She stood there, Yvonne, arms crossed, face poised. In her hand, she held an envelope. She smiled. But that curve of her lips betrayed nothing warm. My first impulse was to refuse entry, but I let her in. Curiosity edged fear out of the way. She stepped past me, closing the door cleanly behind her. The air shifted immediately, thick with the weight of things unsaid. She offered no apology, no regret. She held the envelope and said, "I came to clear the air." But she placed it on the table, like an executioner leaning over the blade. Inside, a copy of their joint will. My name, nowhere. I swallowed. My throat constricted. She poured tea without asking. Her hands slid the pot across the table. "I know you feel hurt," she said, voice soft but eyes scanning, not connecting. "This isn't personal." She spoke like someone quoting peace. I nodded. Silence preserved as strength. She spoke of legacy and new traditions, words that implied I was too old, too outdated. She left the envelope there and said, "We just want peace. But if peace isn't possible, we'll do what we have to do." I locked eyes with her. I whispered, "That sounds less like peace and more like a line rehearsed for court." She tilted her head. The smile was colder now. Then she turned to the framed photo on the side table. Marcus as a boy. She lifted the frame. "I won't let anything ruin his future," she said. It was a warning disguised as protection. My fists clenched at my sides. "Then you should have never lied to his past," I said quietly. She left. Heels clicking down the hall like punctuation. I closed the door after her, not with fear, but with quiet finality. I walked immediately to my desk and called my lawyer. I insisted on safeguarding documents for the house, my will, custody matters for Nia, who had recently been under my care. I locked drawers, moved papers, things I should have done earlier, but never dared. I made lists of every conversation, every slight. I wasn't going to leave anything to chance. That evening, I went to the church, not for service, but for records. I asked Deacon Renzo for character affidavits from neighbors, old congregants. He nodded and said something I'll never forget. "They forgot you were raised to survive battles like this." It landed in me like armor. Inside me, a decision crystallized. I will not just protect what remains. I will dismantle their illusion of dominance. I don't need to shout. I just need to be undeniable. Friday had been still, the kind of still where even the refrigerator hum feels like noise. I was folding towels in the living room when my old flip phone, the one Myla Ray slipped me, buzzed once. Just once. She never called, always texted. And this time, just a message. "You need to see this. Not the version they posted. The real one." A link followed. I stared at it for a while. Something about the weight of that message settled on me before I even clicked. I picked up the tablet, opened the browser, and tapped. The video began. Javon, alone, sitting on a patio, holding a glass of wine, speaking into her own phone like it was a diary. No cut, no fancy intro, no background music, just her face, her tone, her words. I didn't want her there. Malik agreed. It had to feel clean, tight, intimate, not dragged down by Old energy. I paused the video, sat back, then hit play again. Same words, same smirk. A glance over her shoulder, like someone might be listening. I rewound it and watched again, then again. The fifth time through, I was biting my lip so hard I tasted iron. There was no regret in her voice. None. Just calculation. I downloaded the video, saved it to an old external drive I kept stashed in my Bible drawer, then backed it up to a second. I wasn't about to let truth slip through my fingers again. I sat still for a long while. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because my body had to catch up with what my mind already accepted. They planned this. The wedding, the silence, the smear. Later that evening, I called Zeke, Zarek Aldridge. He and I go way back. Used to work with code before the world got fancy with cloud this and smart that. He answered on the second ring. Hey Mama P, what's wrong? I need a favor, quiet and exact. He didn't ask questions. I emailed the file over. He called me back 20 minutes later. It's clean. No edits. Timestamped, uncompressed. This ain't fake and it ain't deep faked. It's real. I nodded to myself, staring at the screen even though the call had ended. I watched it again. This time I noticed something I missed. Javon muttering about keeping the old woman quiet, and how the lawyer says it's better if she has no claim. I froze. So it had gone that far. I could have screamed, could have driven over to that house and let loose, but I didn't. I made a pot of tea, sat on my porch, watched the sky darken. Saturday morning, I met Deacon Renzo behind the sanctuary after midweek cleanup. I pulled the phone from my bag and let him watch. Blurred slightly, just enough to keep Javon's face clear but private. He didn't blink the whole time. When it ended, he looked at me and said, This should be seen, but timing is everything. I nodded. Then I made another call, to Zarel Monet, the attorney who handled my cousin's guardianship case years back. Told him what I had. Asked him to start gathering character references, school records, anything that could tie this clip to real-world outcomes. That evening, while making dinner, the phone rang again. Avon, one of Malik's old college buddies. He hadn't called me in years. Miss B, I saw something. On one of those burner IGs folks use when they think nobody's watching. Somebody's sharing a video. Looked like Javon. Looked bad. He hadn't seen the whole thing, but he saw enough to know something wasn't right. I thanked him, hung up, then sat quietly for a long while. At 9:42 that night, my phone buzzed again. A text from Javon. Be careful with what you believe. No hello, no name, just that. I didn't reply. I set the phone down, face first, walked out onto the porch. The street was quiet, except for the crickets and the occasional flicker of porch lights up the block. I leaned on the railing and looked out like I was watching something rise that hadn't yet appeared. They built walls to lock me out, I whispered, but I'll use their own bricks to build windows. And just then, the phone buzzed again behind me. One message, no name attached, but the preview said, FWD, do you really know your mother? Saturday evening, I strapped my purse across my chest and took one last steadying breath. The envelope with the clip and legal filings sat inside it. My heart pulsed. My hands didn't shake, not like they used to. I dressed in my navy suit, pearls, sensible heels. I told myself, tonight is not about being polite. It's about being seen. I showed up early to the church fellowship hall. They had arranged long banquet tables, roses in vases, framed portraits of family generations on pedestals. The seating was clearly divided. One side for Javon's people, the other for guests. My seat was at the very back, where I could scan faces, some who once called me Mama Phoebe, now acting distant, whispering as I passed. I walked slow, head held, feeling the stare of many who used to know me. At the head table, Javon stood up to make her toast. She raised her glass and spoke of unity, legacy, forward journeys. She never once said my name. My throat tightened. In her words, I heard exclusion. In her demeanor, I felt the challenge. Her side applauded vigorously. My heart hammered. She glanced in my direction, not apology, but testing. With quiet resolve, I stood. My voice trembled at first, but I steadied it. If unity means excluding me, then I will speak the truth. I walked forward and plugged my laptop into the projector. The hall flickered to life with images and sound. Javon's voice filled the room. No edits, raw clip. Her own admission that she staged the wedding to omit me. Silence came first. Then gasps. A few people stood. Some mouths fell open. I read a line. I needed the wedding to look perfect. I didn't want whispers of her in my picture. I placed my documents on the head table, social account logs, altered will, legal filings, evidence laid bare. I gazed at their faces and said, I didn't beg to be invited because I earned my place. This is my place. The room dissolved into whispers. Javon was still motionless. Javon's face drained. Malik stood behind her, lips parted, confusion in his eyes. The guests murmured. Older women wept quietly, men shifted uncomfortably. Javon's mother rushed forward, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders, leaning toward her daughter with frantic apologies, to the crowd, not to me. I stepped away from the head table and walked through the center aisle, not rushed, not fearful, purposeful. As I passed, someone shouted, You can't just play with people's lives and get away with it. That voice echoed what I already knew. Justice doesn't always wait for kindness. I exited the hall under a hush, chest heavy, but fire lit inside me. Things would never return to how they were. Monday evening found me pacing the kitchen while the sky outside darkened. I'd avoided the phone all day, until it rang. The insider voice whispered first. Javon's firm is under investigation for embezzlement. I felt the walls shift. At church, elders looked at me sideways. They asked if I'd heard. I nodded. Word had reached them, too. My secret was no longer hidden. I called Zarel Monet. His tone was clipped when he answered. They've suspended her, he said, voice low. Internal audit, serious violations. Malik rang me next. His voice cracked. Mama, is that true? He asked. I didn't lie. I didn't confirm. I just heard his pain. The predator is wounded and desperate. Later, I sat at the county records office, watching deeds scroll across the screen. I found it. The house title had been transferred into an LLC I've never heard of. My home, our home, was being sold under a name I didn't recognize. My breath tightened. Something inside froze. I texted Malik. He deflected. I called Javon. She claimed it was tax strategy. I said no. The plan is reversal. I'll fight this in court. I met neighbors who remembered when deeds were signed in my name. Their notes, their memories, will testify. That evening, the community center held a forum on elder rights. I rose when my name was called. I told my story. No theatrics, just truth. I wasn't seeking pity, I said. I was demanding acknowledgement. The room sat silent. Some nodded. Others wept quietly. I felt Zeke's hand on my shoulder as I stepped down. A local reporter scribbled my name into her notebook. She asked if she could share my story. I said yes, but only on my terms. Let truth heal what lies broke. Late that night, I woke to another voicemail, her voice. You think you've won? I still have cards to play. I pressed nothing. I wrapped my hand around the Bible where I'd hidden the drive. I whispered to the dark, let them play, but I won't dance to their tune again. In that moment, I knew the fight wasn't over. It had just shifted. Morning came with shadows outside my window, strangers pacing the curb, blueprints in hand, measuring tools in their fingers. My heart clenched. They came to measure. I came to reclaim. I was rinsing out my coffee mug when Zeke's voice cut through the quiet. Phoebe, turn on Channel 7, now. I didn't ask questions. I grabbed the remote, clicked it on, and the screen lit up with the face of a young anchor. She looked straight into the camera and said, Tonight's story, a local family's private truth, now public. An expose on silence, exclusion, and a mother's voice. I didn't breathe. Then it played. The clip. My clip. The raw footage I hid in my Bible drawer. Javon's voice clear as glass. I needed it to look perfect. I didn't want whispers of her in my picture. Every word echoing louder than the last. The camera caught the shock in people's eyes, the hush that fell over them like ash. Someone in the background muttered, "She did that to her own mama?" Phones lit up across the city. Mine buzzed until it slid across the table. Messages flooded in. Some sent prayers, some offered support. A few, accusations, from folks I once fed, once laughed with. Amalek's call came right after. "Mom, I don't know how this got out." His voice trembled. "I didn't ask for this." I believed him, but believing didn't fix what was broken. Javon's mother texted me for the first time in years. "I'm so sorry for how she treated you," she wrote. Short, heavy. The church elders left voicemails, gentle voices asking if I'd speak at the next service. I told them I'd think about it. Instead, I logged into my own page, typed out a message. Unfiltered truth. Tonight, I'll speak for myself. I didn't need permission. I needed clarity. Later that evening, I sat down with the lights low. The same drive, same file. My same tired heart, now ready. But before I went live, I saw a notification. Javon had posted her statement. "I'm sorry if my actions hurt anyone," she said. Her face soft, makeup just right. "That was never my intention." I listened. Every word dipped in careful distance. If anyone, she might as well have said nothing. A few moments later, a direct message arrived. "Let's talk privately. This doesn't have to keep tearing us apart." I didn't respond. I saved the message. Then I typed my own post. An apology isn't healing when it erases accountability. Then I pressed the red button. Live. "This is not about revenge," I said, voice steady. "This is about truth. The kind you don't whisper behind hands or dress up in lace." I played the clip again, only snippets now. Paused where her eyes darted, where her voice lowered. "This," I said, "is what silence protects." I didn't raise my voice. Didn't shed a tear. I just told the truth. I called names. I gave context. I refused to block the ugly comments. I wanted it all visible. Before I signed off, I looked straight into the camera. When they broke your trust with silence, rebuild it with your voice. The feed ended. The messages didn't. "Thank you. I went through this too. What now?" Then it came. One final message, from Javon. "So you want war? I'll grant you that." It was a quiet Thursday afternoon when the knock came. Not rushed, not aggressive, just, sure. I opened the door, and there stood Sister Claudette from the church, holding a cream envelope with gold trim. Her smile was soft. "This ain't no charity, Miss Phoebe. It's honor." I took the card with slow hands. The words inside were handwritten, a celebration of honor, hosted by the community. They were redoing what had been broken, not a wedding, something deeper, a mending. The next day, my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen calling me in a while. "Hey, Ma!" Malik's voice came through. "They told me about the event. I want to stand with you this time, if that's okay." I sat with that silence for a beat. Years of feeling small inside my own family's shadow boiled to the surface, but I didn't let it spill. "If you mean it, you'll show up," I told him. "Standing beside me ain't the same as standing for me." Don't confuse the two. When Sunday rolled around, I wore gold, not beige, not pastel. Gold, bold, alive. The kind of color that doesn't ask for permission. The community center glowed from within. Pastors, old school teachers, Sister Geneva with her tambourine, even though no music played yet. Even my next-door neighbor, Miss Lila, brought her sweet potato pie. I hadn't tasted her cooking since the mess started. Instead of pews, they arranged soft chairs in a wide circle. In the center, a small platform with a single chair. Mine, not a throne, but it felt royal anyway. Pastor Lisa welcomed everyone with a voice as warm as cornbread. Today ain't about fixing what can't be undone. It's about honoring the ones who held on anyway. A reimagined wedding procession began, without a groom, without bouquets, just people walking down the aisle holding candles of memory, for dignity, for every mother made invisible at her child's milestone. And there, standing beside me, was Malik. Suit too big, tie a little crooked, but he was present, fully. When they handed him the mic, he didn't fumble. "Mama," he began, "you never needed their permission to be royal. We did. We forgot who taught us grace, who fed us strength with every spoon of beans and rice. I'm sorry I didn't see it until the world did." He broke down. The room didn't flinch. They let him weep. Then came my turn. I didn't prepare a speech, just stood with the quiet power that comes after a storm. People ask if I forgave Javon. I say this: forgiveness ain't something you pass around like gum after service. It's sacred, it's earned, and sometimes it's quiet. I looked around at the crowd. Women with tired eyes, men who'd stopped calling their mothers, children clutching their grandmother's hands. This ain't about bitterness. It's about memory, about not letting folks rewrite who you were just 'cause they're louder. Javon wasn't there. We invited her. She didn't come, and her empty seat said more than her words ever could. After the blessing circle ended and plates of cornbread were passed, a group of young girls from the neighborhood came up to me, tiny hands, big questions in their eyes. I knelt down, handed each of them a note, folded paper with my own handwriting. "You belong," it said, "even when they pretend you don't." We sat in a little cluster by the exit. I told them stories, not about the scandal, but about strength, about showing up even when it hurts, about not letting shame wear your name like a coat. The sky was bruised with twilight when I walked home. I passed the same sidewalk where I once cried so hard I nearly collapsed. Only this time, my back was straight, my steps slow but full, and I smiled. Turns out, the wedding wasn't about them. It was about me all along.